23 governors will be elected on December 16. How many of them do you predict the opposition can get, even under the unfair election that you just described?
Well, for one thing, you're looking at a serious divisions within the government lines, the government party lines, which will, if Mr. Chavez is not active and present very actively in the whole process, they may become worse. Secondly, the government has shown its disregard for regional autonomy by sending to some of the regions, even against even as it breaks the rules of the game, because they were not supposed to be able to do this, but they're sending to the regions candidates that do not belong to those regions. So they don't identify with those regions. So therefore, you might have gains in states like Anzoátegui, in states like Aragua. You could have surprises there. We also saw that in Mérida, which has been a government-ruled state, the state itself voted against President Chavez in the presidential election, and the government candidates there are divided also in Mérida. So I think there could be a gain there, and there could be a surprise in Bolívar state as well, where there's also a certain amount of division, and there's a very unpopular governor and a very popular former governor, Andrés Velázquez, running. So you have possibilities of gaining, and I do think that we will be able to hold on to the states that are already in opposition hands.
Which are 5, right?
Which are 5. Zulia, I have no doubt. Arias Cárdenas is also an imported candidate. He was born in Táchira, and he has a terrible reputation for his past record of betraying Chavez first and then betraying the opposition. He's a very unpopular candidate. You have Carabobo, where there is a repetition by Governor Salas, but the candidate that they have nominated is a military officer that has never been very strong. In Carabobo, also, the president disregarded his own party, where they wanted to nominate the mayor of Puerto Cabello, and he went over them and put in this one other candidate who has a military background. The same occurs in Margarita, where both candidates are actually from Margarita, but one of them has been away from the island for many, many years, but he's a former military officer. One of the things people are noticing is that most of the nominees by the president are military officers, which would contribute to the further militarization of the regime.
What about Táchira and Miranda, the other two?
I didn't mention. Well, Miranda, I think, is certainly, there's very little doubt that Capriles will probably be reelected. The candidate there is not very well known. He used to be vice president, a complete non-entity. It's one of these people who, if he doesn't have Chavez right next to him, nobody really knows who he is. And in Táchira, the same situation. The governor of Táchira has been very, very active defending his region. The Chavistas in Táchira are not totally united. The candidate they put into play in Táchira has a little bit of a better image. However, he was dismissed by Chavez himself as head of the tax situation, with a very questionable background on what he might have done while he was administrating the tax authority. So I don't think that the state, and Táchira voted against Chavez in the presidential election. So I didn't mention it because I think Táchira and Miranda are in Miranda during the presidential elections, they did all kinds of tricks to make it look like the majority voted for the president, but in fact, most people voted for the the image of Governor Capriles. The thing was that there was one candidate one party that changed its support, and so there were 60,000 votes, 67,000 votes there that should have gone to Capriles that did not. Plus, they had all the soldiers. The soldiers were put it into voting. They can vote wherever they want. They made most of them vote in Miranda. So Miranda is basically an opposition state, and I don't see any problem there or in Táchira.
You just mentioned the topic of the health of the president, Hugo Chavez. As an international analyst, would you prefer to see a new chapter in the Venezuelan history because the health of the president or because through elections?
Well, obviously, if there's no new situation emerging from his health, you will not have another presidential election for 6 years unless you have a recall in 3. So his health is an important factor. What is preferable would be for it to be, obviously, it's always preferable to have a situation where your result is a consequence of the votes. But I don't think that's going to happen in Venezuela. I think you're going to have unforeseen situations. I don't have any idea at when or how soon, but I think there's going to be a whole change. And of course, the entire regime is built around one person. The people around Mr. Chavez would be basically, most of them, if not almost all of them, totally unknown were it not for Mr. Chavez and supporting them. So, plus the quality of support that he has had around him indicate that there is going to be tremendous division if he's not there to actively hold it together.
Well, thanks, Mr. Herrera-Vaillant, and thank you all for listening. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Andre.
For more information, visit freevenezuela.org and tune into our weekly podcast.